It's beautiful here, thought Renato. He was thrilled to be back with his old war buddy. He'd missed the mad rabbit, but something was not quite right. This is why heroes are called dashing, Renato thought. See? Dashing? Get it? Who needed bridges anyway? Sorry, mustache, thought Renato. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts. And something useful. I'll just have a dash, thought Renato. Renato felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, but few birds, if you didn't count the ravens. Renato smelled sick animals and dying ones, but no healthy ones. And getting a bad feeling about this, Renato thought. Maybe Lapina was right. Maybe they should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. He could learn new skills, if only he'd take the time to figure out which. Missed his old skills. He welcomed them back like it was at a reunion. About ravens was, they never dropped any loot, and no one ever wanted the feathers. As he held the radiant icosahedron, Renato felt queasy, like dozens of tiny worms were nibbling his insides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Renato ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Renato ached to be rid of it. "Tell you what," said Lupino. "I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost." The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Renato. But what if Lupino got the core and then broke it, or lost it, or worse? Was Renato ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Trust me, Renato, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter. As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lupino was jumping up and down with excitement. "Stop rabbiting around," Renato said. Lupino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lupino leapt off the ship. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Renato vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Renato was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Renato could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in the sector, right? It was definitely easier to fight inanimate objects. I wonder what I could make with all these sword crafting materials, thought Renato. His mother had never let him wave his sword around at home. He guessed he was still compensating for that. Renato caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lupino. Of course he had to let Lupino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? This was definitely better than pulling yourself up in a bucket. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Renato vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Renato was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Renato could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in this sector. Right? Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway. He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he? Renato caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lupino. Of course he had to let Lupino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? A crafting bench. Renato wondered what he could make with it.
sword from the south was terrific for barbecuing sausages and ravens. Sharp? Check. Pointy? Check. Flexible? Check. What else do you need in a sword?
Renato took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet. One message caught his attention. A high priority order has been given by the Emperor himself to locate something called the Iblis Stone. It was somewhere on a desert island. Renato had a bad feeling about this. Iblis was the name of one of the lost gods. If the Emperor was diverting ravens to search for it, maybe he should try to find it first. Then the Far-Speaker Toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by ravens. Lapino and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lapino again? And now the Empire had the core. Renato hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their Far-Speaker didn't croak back. Was the base under attack too? What was going on at the base. But he knew what the ravens would do to Lapino if Renato didn't rescue him fast. What are old friends for, if not to need rescuing every few days? Renato felt a twinge of doubt. Should he have gone to the base? No. Logically, wherever they'd taken Lapino was probably where they took the core, right? Oh, why couldn't Lapino have just, for once, not got himself captured? Was that too much to ask? He shouldn't be too hard on the rabbit. No, he meant well, and he was insanely brave. You had to admire that. That was always a rush.
These platforms were great. Renato wanted one for his house. Renato felt new powers ready to blossom within him, or something. Were they holding Lapino anyway? There was no sign of him or the ravens who'd captured him. Just rocks and snow and the usual scouts. No sign of the core either. Was this a wild rabbit chase? Oh, trust Lapino to screw up even getting captured. But what was this rebellion for anyway? Oh, Lapino was a useless goof. But he was a friend. If friends didn't matter anymore, what was the point of winning this war? Renato's paws were getting numb. Calaveras really didn't want company, did he? Smashing things was fun. A lever? That was new. Most people still use doorknobs.
The rebellion would soon be engaging the Imperial fleet in a desperate battle. All Reynardo had done was save a friend. It didn't feel as good as he'd hoped.
At the end of the mountain path, Reynardo came to a clearing. There was a campfire, raven feathers, and... oh, Lupino's lucky deck of cards. Well, that wasn't good. Reynardo hoped Lupino had not tried to cheat his captors at cards. Ravens were much better than weasels at counting, and they had a very poor sense of humor.
Then, he saw what he had hoped never to see. Fresh scraps of rabbit fur. Ragged and bloody, ravens would eat anything.
By Grabthar's hammer! Reynardo screamed at the sky. I will avenge you!
The rebels had assembled their fleet. Ahead, the clouds were dark with Imperial ships. If he could reach the Emperor before the rest of the rebels did, maybe he could settle this without too much bloodshed. He set sail, and the Farfarer shot forward.
Poor Lupino had never been a great warrior. The mad rabbit was good for a lark and a laugh. And a pint. The thought of ravens eating him made Reynardo furious. The way they were eating up the land. The way the Emperor was eating up the people with his new, bloodthirsty ways. He would make them all pay.
Every day he was getting better and better. The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want it to go. What was really fun was hooking yourself onto a moving ship. There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything. Was all coming back to him. He wondered what he'd remember next. Gone rather well, actually.
had given up every objective to save his friend. He had given up the armature, the core, the gem, and even Zenobia. He loved Lupino, he realized. And now the rabbit was gone. A hero looks out for his friends, even when they're gone. He would send Lupino an honor guard of ravens to serve him in the halls of the Valiant. He would avenge him. Renata had been the terror of the sandcastles when he was 2.
There was an inscription. Praised the sun.
Finally, he reached the Emperor's ship. And there was Lupino, surrounded by ravens. He was alive! They'd eaten some other rabbit. "I'll save you!" he shouted with joy and flung himself at the ravens. "Oh, you shouldn't have," said Lupino when the last raven was down. Renato threw his arms around his best friend. "I had to come. I love you, man. You really, really shouldn't have," said Lupino. And Renato felt a rather sharp pain in his back. As he collapsed, Lupino took the dagger out of Renato's back and wiped it off on Renato's sleeve. "Why, you always have to be the hero. Brave Renato, epic Renato, super sexy Renato, and I'm sick of it. But I loved you. And you thought I was the idiot," said Lapino as Renato died.
Okay, that was weird. He could have sworn he just died. Instead, he was on the Farfarer, sailing away from Ubar. And it was still burning. He'd fled burning Ubar years ago, hadn't he? And now he was back there. Had all those years fighting the Empire been nothing but a vision into the future? A useful vision if it was true. He'd learned something. Lapino was a traitor. Renato had suspected there was something wrong with the Mad Rabbit, but now he knew there was malice behind his goofiness. He'd made bad choices. But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The book's pages began to flip backwards, towards the beginning. And he realized that his adventure was just beginning. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Bernardo went ostrich hunting.
Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away.
Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
It was time to make a new sword.
Renato distrusted doors that opened automatically, especially after being buried for millennia. Was this some sort of trap?
You'd think at this rate, the Imperial Army would run out of ravens.
Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. And he hadn't come too late. It wasn't his fault. They looked so breakable.